Oh, hang on. Good evening, all. My name's Adam Duval, back again, and we're here to talk with my fantastic guest, Chris Cortopass. Please tell me that's right.
Well done, mate.
Got it in one. Got it in one. Now, obviously, we're all here to talk about our stories, to tell our stories, and I give my guests the opportunity to possibly transform someone's life. Now, obviously, Chris has had his own challenges with mental health, and now he is here to transform someone else's. I've got a moth next to me. I don't like moths. I know. But yeah. So all I've got to say is welcome, Chris.
Thanks very much, Adam. It's awfully good of you to have me here. Really appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Now, obviously, we want to get started, kick straight off. Welcome to everyone that's tuning in tonight. Please comment who you are, where you've come from, and that's what I'm going to ask. Is where you actually tuning from?
Over to me.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks again. I think we've got a bit of a delay. My internet connection isn't very good, so I'll talk. If it's just a delay, that's great. If you can't receive me, if you're not receiving me, give me a Wakanda sign or something, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks very much. I think it's great to have these different channels, and for men especially, to collaborate on these things and share more of their stories is incredibly important, particularly at the moment, because a lot of guys are sitting there at home, and they're experiencing this existential challenge that we all are. And they're being left with their thoughts and those reflections and those feelings of frustration or alienization or isolation, and so on and so forth. So it's great to share across these platforms. So my business is Short Steps, which is about sort of problem solving I talk about. And it's really about preventions at the heart of it. And I was talking to you, Adam, before the call and saying that with my story, which I'll tell you a bit of just now, actually the prevention bit could have been so much, could have been really easy and could have had a really huge impact and avoided me from struggling as I did. So yeah, this is very much about trying to catch guys before they get into dire straits, or help them to avoid sliding back if they have pushed through it. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story. Are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, I can hear loud and clear.
Magic stuff. So yeah, I mean, this is such a classic tale, very, very common. You know, when I was a young lad, I deferred a lot of my preferences and what I thought I wanted to do with my life to other people, to other people's beliefs and values, you know, whether it be my parents or my teachers, or, you know, so at that very formative stage of life, say when I was in high school, looking at my life ahead, thinking about making those essential decisions as to which course your life is going to go off on, I was very much making them based on the wrong things. You know, so I was a creative kid. I was very extroverted and enjoyed engaging with people. I wasn't the most academic. You know, I got good grades and stuff, but it didn't come naturally to me. I had to work really hard at it, particularly in the STEM subjects and things. At that critical point in my life, though, the story was, you have to do sciences, languages, you go to university, you do a technical degree, all that kind of rhetoric. And so that's what I did. And so you take this creative teenager at that critical point of his life where he's going out on his own. So I went to university. And then he was put into an environment where actually he couldn't thrive. I couldn't thrive. Creative person doing an engineering degree, which is what I then went on to do at university, which was totally wrong for me. And because I don't like to quit, I dragged myself through it for 4 years. During that time, struggling with stress, struggling with anxiety and frustration, and a little bit of depression, sort of 18, 19, 20, more anxiety, I suppose. And all of that caused by this living in the wrong way and this going down the path. University was incredibly tough because I wasn't interested in the subject. I didn't study. I don't know how I got my degree. It was quite miraculous, really. And I spent a lot of time going out and enjoying myself as an arts student would, if you follow. So it was, it's this kind of this paradox of a kind of arts student type person, but doing an engineering degree. And of course, it was already starting to make me sick. There was already those symptoms there. Stress, like anxiety, not being able to sleep. But it continued on. I continued on this path, this belief that this was the course that I had to go on, and didn't consider it enough, and didn't have the guidance and the tools at that time in life to really explore what was right for me and make that decision correctly. So I went off. I moved down from Scotland to England. Joined the energy industry, which couldn't be any more of a technical environment if you tried. And so then spent the next sort of however many years, 8, 9, 10 years of my life, working again in an environment with people who thought differently to me, who behaved differently to me, who I didn't click with or, couldn't communicate very well with. And so it was tough. But the trap here, and this is the trap that we need to warn guys about in particular, is that by being a bit deluded like that, by pushing on and only ranking the quality of my life based on things like, did I have a nice house, a nice fancy car, how, 6-figure salary or whatever you call it, pension, lots of money, suits, you get the story.
Yeah.
And so all that was there. So therefore I was convincing myself I was a success and life was good. But of course, bubbling away under the background were all those symptoms and all those triggers that were making that life very, very hard for me. So, again, struggling with the work, struggling with the technical elements, struggling with the people. Oftentimes I would clash because we just had very different beliefs and very different ways of looking at things, very different ways of working even. And so that's where a lot of these clashes, particularly in the corporate environment, come from. So there you go, young guy, creative, did a technical degree, started a technical job, and of course, and a lot of sacrifices. I was reflecting on this the other day in my story. A lot of sacrifices. When I left Scotland, I left a very, very close group of friends, a really solid foundation. It's a very difficult cultural thing to do as well, actually, as a Scotsman moving to England. It sounds funny to say it, but actually it's a sacrifice in itself, because we're very patriotic, and love our country.
Oh, we are.
That's it. And there was a potential relationship at the time, and so a lot of stuff was sacrificed. And then over the years, being able to follow my actual dreams and the things that I really wanted to do, they also got sacrificed as well. Because this was the lifestyle I committed to, and so a lot of hobbies and things that I would have liked to have enjoyed, I didn't get to more now because life is better. So that was kind of the crux of it. So when I hit about sort of 30, I then had a bit of a breakdown, and it was this reality I'd created for myself, this little ego bubble, this convincing myself that I was a massive success, was very, very fragile. Didn't take a lot to shake it. And actually, back then I wouldn't have and couldn't have been able to cope with any kind of, challenge or suggestion that I wasn't a massive success. And if anyone did sort of try and needle that bubble, I'd get very reactive and very angry. But my brother suffered me quite a few times because he challenged me on something, and then I'd get really reactive. And again, that reactivity, that refusal to listen or believe or hear, strong symptom, strong signal that somebody's obfuscating or playing defense, in my opinion. So, I mean, the cost of that breakdown was so significant. I spent thousands of pounds on therapy in my own pocket because that's what had to be done at the time. Lots of antidepressants, which were difficult to manage and cope with the side effects. It risked my career. My physical health suffered, as you know. Mental health and physical health intrinsically related. So then I wasn't looking after myself, and leaning on the crutches that people tend to lean on when they're not doing well and not looking after themselves very well. And so, it cost a huge amount. And if we go back to the start of the story, all that cost could potentially have been avoided if there had just been someone there, as there is me now, for example, I'm my ideal client, just 10 years too late, But now it's like working with people to say, what's right for you? Who are you? And, is life and the choices you're making, does that match? Or are you making all these choices and things that are going to send you off on a bit of a bit of the wrong course? So it took me a long time to get my head together. I'm far from okay now. I think you know yourself, when people struggle with mental health, oftentimes maintaining it is a bit of a full-time job. But I work hard on it, and I use my coach and my support group to kind of manage that as best I can. And now, out of the corporate world for 4 years now, I've been running my business for 3 years. I've loved it. It's on point. It's on message. It means a huge amount to me. I am a completely different man. Back then, I used to dress super smart and wear shoes and things, all the high fashion stuff, but I never felt comfortable in it. It always felt like an unauthentic performance. Whereas now I'm a bit of a bearded guy in a hat, and I like that. It's smart, but it's relaxed. It's more comfortable. It's more me. Life now. I do have a nice house, great, but the car's just a car. I've got a wonderful partner. I've got a dog now. I've always wanted a dog, and just generally far more relaxed and kind of contented man than I ever was before, to the extent where I would say that lockdown's dragging on a bit now. So even I, being a bit of a hermit creature that I am, who quite likes lockdown, it's dragging on even for me. But the anxiety and stress and frustration and anger surrounding the whole pandemic hasn't ever gotten to me. And I say that's testament to the kind of mindset and the focus and the attitude I have these days, because I've learned these techniques, as I'm sure you have, and tools to kind of recognize, okay, I don't need that, that's fine, shut it down, move on. Whereas other people I know get incredibly wound up. You see them online, they channel a huge amount of energy. And it's a practiced, learned thing to kind of manage that. So I suppose that's kind of it in a nutshell. I hope that made sense. So the cautionary tale here is that for men in particular, we often will build an ego and not allow ourselves to have it challenged and try and protect it. And actually, far greater humility and self-recognition and self-validation is required in order to allow that to be challenged and for us to be able to respond to it in a healthy way. So I think the male ego is a real trap for us.
So obviously, I want to take you back to obviously the Chris that was wearing the suit. But obviously, I was a mental health, I wouldn't say sufferer, but a mental health expertise myself. And like yourself, I would say, and I'm going to ask you this a couple of times. What does mental health mean to you when you was wearing that suit?
So I'll be perfectly honest with you. Despite having had those challenges in university, um, it didn't really mean anything to me, and I think that's probably quite common. I knew that people suffered from depression. I knew that anxiety, but I always we still do it with the awareness reason. We still focus on the
Yeah.
extremes, which I think is a shame. But it was certainly always the case back then as well. So I was just going through this corporate life. You're talking 24 to 30. Suited and booted, walking around pretending like everything was great, but really I didn't consider mental health much at all. In fact, as I said, as part of the story, a big part of my story was that for as long I was numbing myself. Drinking was my thing, and so But again, I didn't see it as a problem. I drink a lot, go to work, do my thing, had a successful career. Wasn't struggling to function. I was looking after myself very well, and was keeping myself, deluded, numb. So I didn't really think about it, and it was only, and this is often the case, isn't it? When you take on a cause, as we have, it's only after you've suffered that you then start to take it seriously. So what happened for me when this break eventually happened, I started to get really confused because it was all very confusing and disorientating. A lot of physical symptoms as well. So I started to get really scared and really disorientated, blotches in the eyes and stuff. So, and thank God, my brother is the one who sort of struggled a bit in the past, and he's the one that was sort of talking to me on the phone and said, GP. So it sadly, it's like, not looking after your physical self and then take something like a heart attack or something to get you to take it seriously. That's the way we are a lot of the time, I think.
Yeah, because I still remember the time when obviously I was doing group therapy. This was talking, about 3 years ago now. And obviously I went to go and see the GP, and obviously just to talk about, I can't remember what it was. And I said to him, I need some advice. He went, what's up? I said, I'm doing this group therapy and I'm finding it hard. And the quick reaction he says is, well, why are you doing it then?
Okay.
Why are you doing it? But the thing is, and this is my honest opinion, I don't believe GPs have full knowledge or an understanding when it comes to mental health. I don't.
I mean, I think GPs will be the first people to tell you that they don't have a universal understanding, at all. And some issues are incredibly tough to, if we think about the gut just very, very quickly. So, mental health and gut problems kind of go hand in hand. And I've always had really, really bad stomach problems, really bad gut problems. But there's so much we don't know about the gut. There's so much we don't understand about it that diagnosing it and treating it effectively is incredibly tough for GPs because there's so many different options. And of course, you apply that to mental health, where it's infinite, the amount of sort of complexities and stuff up there. I think you're right. I think, and the NHS, I don't think is the right setup for mental health support services. I think it's great that they're there. I think it's really important that we do keep trying, and the NHS do amazing stuff with it, with physical health. But I think it should be a separate thing. And the services out there, in particular, things like improving access to psychological therapy, IAPT, which we certainly have here in Warwickshire. You phone up for an appointment and you'll be waiting months. And you can't do it. And I think that's the misunderstanding, the profound misunderstanding about mental health. You asked me what mental health meant to me when I was in my corporate career. What it certainly means to me now is that it's more important, in my opinion, than physical health. And completely misunderstood. People sort of look at it and think that it's something you can live with because of the lack of potentially symptoms and things. So what I'm saying to you is, if you're struggling, if you're in a bad way, let's just say somebody's been hit with a bout of depression and it's really bad and it's confusing their mind and stuff.
Mm.
I keep saying to people, I say, you treat that person that they've got a leg, a limb missing, they're bleeding out. So if you think of it that way, well, you're not going to say to that person, I'll just sit on that gurney and a doctor will be with you in 6 to 7 months. And so, I don't think it is the right place for mental health services, and I don't think it gets people through to support quickly enough. It's an interesting one, though. I think probably more support for private practice and things like this and stuff would actually would potentially be a better place for the government, because you've just got so many people out there that have their own experiences and have their own perspective on it and can relate and can understand. If you're a sufferer, you're far better talking to me than someone else or a GP who hasn't experienced it necessarily.
You know what? I totally agree with you, because I do believe if you come across someone that is practically rock bottom, the best person to talk to and highly recommend is someone that's actually been there themselves, over the likes of like the NHS, because I have seen it scientific facts now that prescribed medication has been prescribed more than therapy.
Absolutely. And to be fair to GPs, that's kind of their job. It's what they're doing. They're there for that sort of first line care. So, I'm experiencing this. Okay, take some medication. I'm experiencing this. Take some medication. I'm experiencing this. Take some medication. And you could argue till the cows come home, of course, as to whether or not that's the right approach and stuff. But that's the system, and that's how they're set up, and that's how they can best deploy sort of quick help to as many people as possible. Mental health issues, you need more time, you need more understanding, more compassion, and ideally. So these support groups that are out there, I'll highlight a few, but I'm sure there's loads of them. There's one called Andy's Man Club on Facebook, which hosts virtual and in real world group meetups.
I've got one.
You've got one. What's it called?
The Warriors of Mental Health.
That's right, the Warriors of Mental Health Warrior, right there, which is fantastic. Andy's Man Club. What else we got? You got them Men Unite,
there's loads.
And I think it's brilliant because it does require lots of different types of flavors, because there's lots of different types of personalities out there. But my approach will be great for someone, but might not work for another guy. Brilliant. And you've got to have a variety of options for people to be able to pick and choose from, particularly given that mental health is such a unique, specific, individual thing. You can look at a broken bone and say that bone's broken, and it will be the same. Doesn't matter who the patient in front of you is, it's a broken bone. You get it. But then you've got a patient in front of you saying, I'm not feeling right. Okay. And the person next to him saying, I'm not feeling right. You go, well, those aren't the same. You can't compare a broken bone there, because the root causes and the triggers and the symptoms are so unique to each individual. So it does need a far more bespoke approach. And I think it's great that there's these groups out there.
So my next question would be, what came of the idea of short steps? Like, where did that come from?
So short steps is actually the translation of my surname there. So if you see Cortopass, that's Italian for short steps. So it's always kind of been a bit prophetic. This idea, that people who are looking to make a change in life. So, for example, if you're working with me and you're saying, Chris, I'm getting frustrated, angry, lashing out at my family, and I can tell I'm getting worse. I need to change direction now. I need to do something about it. It's like, okay, great. But oftentimes what people expect in that situation is these big life-changing leaps and bounds overnight, isn't it? Especially when you're in pain. If you're suffering mentally, or you're struggling with stress and anxiety and that kind of stuff, and it's taking its toll, then again, you can't get that help quick enough. Yeah. And I think it's problematic because life doesn't change like that, does it? And that's why I say it's called short steps for a reason. So this whole idea of taking positive action and bit by bit by bit, making that change. And normalizing it for guys as well, because they will get frustrated, they will get impatient, because it takes time, and you will falter and you'll move backwards and forwards. It's not a linear line, we know all this. So it came from my surname, which I just thought was a bit clever, kind of meant to be. My profession, when I was working in the corporate environment that I eventually got into after getting better. So the story continues on. I got better, and when I was 31, 32, I started doing improvement, sort of continuous improvement, problem solving kind of work, facilitating businesses to be more efficient. And so all those principles are principles of what's called continuous improvement, little iterative gains that build up towards the bigger picture. So I already had the tool set and the language that I could use to kind of start to help people move. So that's where the idea of it being short steps came from. And the approach I used is very much an iterative kind of approach, bit by bit.
You know what? I love it. I love it. And obviously, the final thing I'm going to say is the new Chris, the short steps creator. Now, what does mental health mean to you now?
It means everything. No, of course it does, Adam, and that's a great perspective to highlight. Thanks very much. And it's true, like everything for me comes from a place of mental health first, and it's challenging. It's really challenging because I do still struggle. It would be naive of anyone to say they don't, and I still have challenges that I'm working on, and it's difficult being a guy who's a mental health coach and who runs this business where he's trying to say, I used to be shit and now I used to be bad and now I'm great. I feel that pressure to kind of appear like I've got myself together and that I don't struggle, but of course that's not authentic and it's not honest. And so these days, I mean, he's a far more horizontal guy than that guy in the past ever was. Just very relaxed, a far happier person, more altruistic. I enjoy engaging with people more. I get much more compassion. So for me, mental health means kind of everything, and it kind of leads with it. And I don't get mine right. I suffer and I struggle, and I have peaks and troughs as well. So I think if we are quite comfortable saying to our colleagues and our friends and our family, oh, I feel really sick today, or I have a bad headache, or I need to go to the hospital for this operation on whatever, people will be quite open and honest, sometimes too much, about their physical ailments, then I feel like it should be the same for mental health as well. And people should be able to just say to each other, I'm not feeling it today, or I just don't have them, or whatever it is. Mental health has got to be open and authentic and honest. And that's particularly challenging for men because we still want to bottle it up and pretend like we're fine. And that's a huge blocker. It's going to stop a lot of guys from taking the help they need.
I totally agree because whoever comes and says, "Oh, I've beaten mental health," no, you don't, because I don't believe you can ever beat mental health.
Well, you don't beat your physical health. You have to maintain it constantly.
Oh yeah, you can never beat mental health, but taking control of it, that is possible.
Oh, definitely. So, from my story, you sort of had a bit of it, and I was in a bad place. I, wasn't functioning. Took a lot of time off work. Took like 6 months off work in the first instance. Then had to do a phased return, which in itself was full of fear and anxiety, and so to have gone from the delusional guy back there, I'm not very good with cameras. The delusional guy back here in the past, and then coming up to speed to the guy who was really, really struggling with depression. So was not functioning properly. A lot of confusion and stress and suffering. And then right up to now, it's like I still take antidepressants. I still have my issues. I still have my off days. And but you manage it, and people get scared by that because they think it's going to be like a full-time job. But where I come at things from is no, you manage it by making those small changes, by taking those short steps, by identifying the things that are triggering it and bit by bit taking them away. So actually managing your mental health, in my mind, should involve less work and less activity, because one of the best ways to improve it is to remove those emotional and psychological wastes that are causing it in the first place. Then actually it becomes a very different game. Yeah, it becomes a different game of how can I just live comfortably and safely. And that becomes very satisfying as well, because it makes you more, builds your resilience as you go on.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you mentioned the word fear there, and it just resonated because I was just scrolling through Facebook earlier today, and I came across this person. Obviously, I'm not going to name and all that, but he said he felt lonely and he was scared. And I actually commented saying, you know what? I remember when I was saying those exact words, I am scared of being alone. Just take the word fear. There is a meaning to the word. And I put false evidence appearing real.
Mm.
Just like that. That's what fear stands for.
I like it.
Just
For irrational fears, yeah, absolutely. And when I was in that very confused mind space, it was very scary. I never took action on it, but I certainly contemplated, you know, as we talked about earlier on, sort of ending the game early, and uh, to even contemplate being in that mind space and thinking about that about yourself is scary and painful. It suddenly makes you realize that you don't know yourself as well as you thought you did, and you start to wonder if you can trust yourself. And so, but again, I suppose it's all those kind of things, and dealing with those difficult thoughts and those invasive thoughts in the first place that stop a lot of guys in particular from even wanting to try and open up in the first place. The idea of it's just a bit too daunting. Um, and I can kind of get that, because it's and we know this, that's not really what this video is about, but it's the lack of language, it's a lack of education, it's a lack of support for men, and it's all the wrong cultural and societal kind of expectations and stereotypes that have been applied to men over the years as well. We just don't have access to dealing with that sort of, those kind of topics and those kind of fears yet in the same way as women do, I think.
exactly. And remember, always action speaks louder than words. And if you can find that in yourself, that there is a problem there that needs to be rectified, that means you are on that first step into recovery.
Absolutely. And men like to take action. You know, I think I've called the business Short Steps problem solving for men for a while, because I think guys like to solve problems. Don't think it's quite hitting the nail on the head in terms of the kind of what we're trying to achieve, but but that kind of stuff's important because it does make it more accessible to men and takes away some of that uncertainty and fear. And just say, well, actually, no, we're just going to do some problem solving. We're just going to look at the issues and the symptoms and try and come up with some options, which is what guys like to do, as opposed to women who have better access to the ability to empathize and to share and be passionate. Not to say guys aren't capable of that. We certainly are, and I think we're definitely getting there more and more, societally speaking, as we move forward. I think the big blockers still are with the individual bloke, either not realizing he's in a bad place and needs help, or just not wanting to admit it. And that's where this sort of stuff comes in huge. You know, big props to you for your channel and your efforts, because the more of this kind of stuff's out there, like we said at the start, of all different flavors, the more chances that a guy will catch it and listen to it and go, yeah, okay, I want to take some positive action.
Yeah, and obviously, like it is, I'm here if anyone needs support. Obviously, you can find me on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And where can people find you, Chris?
Yeah, so if they go to Facebook and do a search for Short Steps Problem Solving for Men, they'll find the page. There's a group called the Man Shed, which is kind of a nice little support group. Again, men are welcome to join that. I'm also on YouTube as well, I gotta be Short Steps as something or other. Yeah, I've got quite a good bit of content on YouTube, and I've never really used it for anything. So we're going to start kind of advertising it and making it a bit more. Yeah. So yeah. So again, if you do a search for short steps problem solving, you'd be able to find me in there. So Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube.
There you go. There you go. And on that note, thank you for coming on.
That was cracking, Adam. Really, really appreciate it. Fantastic what you're doing. Keep going with it. You know, the more this kind of stuff gets out there, as I said earlier, just the better it is. And thanks so much again for your time.
You're most welcome. And on that note, I'm going to end this podcast now. And please share this in awareness. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It'll really help a lot. And also, please join me live in, well, it's 29 now, so at 10 o'clock tonight, I'm going to be joined by Jamie Long. He is going to be sharing his story, because this is what it's all about, everyone getting the story out there. And all I've got to say is, cheerio.
Brilliant. Thanks so much again.